The Imperial scout ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its sensors immediately detecting the radio waves bouncing through space. Captain Reed of the Imperial Scout Force stood on his bridge, his expression shifting from boredom to mild interest as the data streamed across his screens. "Another primitive species," he muttered, watching the countless satellite signals orbiting the third planet. "At least they've managed to pollute their orbit with technology." He straightened his pristine white uniform, a habit he'd developed over his 20 years of first contact missions. The year was 2045, and humanity had just made its first baby steps into space. The International Space Station had grown into a proper space hub, and the Moon hosted 3 small research bases. Mars saw regular supply missions, though its first permanent base was still under construction. But to the Empire, this level of advancement was laughably primitive. Reed's second-in-command, Officer Wilson, approached with a datapad. "Sir, analysis complete. They call themselves humans. Their military capabilities are fragmented, multiple nations with independent forces. No unified planetary defense. Their most advanced weapons are chemical-propelled projectiles and crude nuclear devices." Reed nodded, following standard Imperial protocol. The Empire had encountered thousands of species over its 50,000-year history. Every encounter followed the same pattern: discover, assess, and absorb into the Empire. Those who resisted simply fell faster. "Send the standard greeting package," Reed ordered. "Let's see how they handle the revelation that they're not alone." The message went out on all frequencies, in all Earth's major languages. The response was chaos. Stock markets crashed. Religious leaders called emergency meetings. Military forces went on high alert. Politicians fumbled for responses. Inside the United Nations emergency session, representatives from every nation gathered to address this unprecedented situation. The Imperial message was clear: Earth could join the Empire peacefully and gain access to advanced technology, or resist and face extinction. "They're giving us 1 Earth month to decide," said Thomas Brown, the UN Secretary General, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Their terms are restrictive." The terms were more than restrictive. They were suffocating. Earth would be classified as a Class 4 civilization, meaning limited access to advanced technology. Humans would be allowed to work only in designated sectors of the economy. Earth's resources would be subject to Imperial quotas. Military forces would be disbanded, replaced by an Imperial garrison. Behind closed doors, in a secure bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a different meeting took place. Military leaders and scientists from various nations gathered in what would later be known as the Phoenix Council. "They think we're primitive," General Anderson said, scanning the room of 30 people representing Earth's most powerful nations. "That's good. Let them think that." Dr. Baker, head of the Advanced Defense Research Division, stepped forward. "Our quantum computing projects have already surpassed what their scout ships show as their standard. We've detected flaws in their communication systems, weaknesses in their shield harmonics. They expect us to either submit or fight foolishly," Anderson continued. "They don't expect us to play along while preparing. Humanity has one advantage they don't know about. We've been preparing for aliens for over a century. Our fiction, our games, our movies. We've imagined this scenario thousands of times. We know exactly what not to do." The room filled with determined nods. The plan was ambitious but simple: appear weak, gather intelligence, and prepare in secret. Earth would seemingly accept Imperial dominion while building its strength in the shadows. 2 weeks later, Earth's official delegation met with Captain Reed aboard his ship. The humans appeared appropriately awed by Imperial technology, asked predictably primitive questions, and displayed the expected mix of fear and resignation. "Your world makes the wise choice," Reed said, not bothering to hide his condescension. "The Empire will guide your species to civilization, in time." "We are honored," replied the lead human diplomat, bowing slightly. "Earth looks forward to learning from the Empire's wisdom." Later that night, as Reed prepared his report to Imperial Command, he noted, "Standard primitive species encounter. No notable resistance expected. Recommend minimal garrison force. Nothing remarkable about these humans." That report would later become famous as the Empire's greatest intelligence failure, because even as Reed's ship departed, carrying news of Earth's submission, the first secret shipyards were being built in the asteroid belt, and humanity's greatest minds were already reverse engineering the few pieces of Imperial tech they'd managed to scan. The Empire had made a crucial mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. They would learn, too late, that humans were anything but primitive. 3 years had passed since Earth's submission to the Empire. On the surface, humanity played the role of the obedient servant race perfectly. Imperial observers watched as humans dismantled their military bases, closed their weapon factories, and accepted Imperial oversight with apparent humility. Deep within the asteroid belt, however, a different story unfolded. Admiral James stood at the observation deck of Shadowyard 1, humanity's first secret shipyard. Through the reinforced windows, he watched robots construct massive warships inside the hollowed-out asteroid. The Empire's sensors couldn't penetrate the special mineral composition of these rocks, a fact humanity had carefully hidden. "Status report," he said to the team gathered behind him. Director Thompson stepped forward with her tablet. "We've completed the 15th Fleet vessel this month. The new assembly lines are working better than expected. The Empire's supply ships pass within 10,000 kilometers and detect nothing." The Empire had given Earth basic space travel technology as a gift, outdated engines, and simple shield systems. They didn't know that human scientists had already taken these simple systems and improved them beyond recognition. In another hidden facility on Mars' dark side, Dr. Roberts led the reverse engineering team. They had gathered every piece of Imperial technology they could find, even the smallest fragments from their ship's waste. Today, they made a breakthrough. "Look at this," Dr. Roberts said, pointing to a screen showing Imperial shield frequencies. "Their shields only block certain energy patterns. They never thought to defend against simple kinetic weapons. They consider them too primitive to be a threat." This discovery led to the development of humanity's secret weapon, hybrid weaponry. They combined primitive railguns with advanced energy systems, creating weapons that could pierce Imperial shields like paper. The Empire's monthly inspection ships came and went, their reports always the same: humans progressing at expected rate. No signs of unauthorized advancement. Meanwhile, in underground bases across Earth, military personnel trained on simulators built from stolen Imperial data. They learned to fight in space, to operate advanced ships, to think in 3 dimensions. The Empire thought these facilities were entertainment centers. After all, what harm could come from letting humans play with fake spaceships? "The AI integration is complete," reported Tech Chief Martinez, demonstrating their newest advancement. The humans had taken the Empire's basic computer systems and created something new: artificial intelligence that could think faster than any Imperial computer. In the asteroid belt, the fleet grew. Each ship was a masterpiece of hidden innovation. From the outside, they looked like simple mining vessels, the only ships humans were allowed to build. Inside, they were warships unlike anything the Empire had seen. Admiral James walked through the hangar of their flagship, the Shadow of Earth. The ship carried weapons the Empire would think impossible, combinations of old and new technology that no one had tried before. Best of all, it could hide in plain sight, thanks to humanity's greatest breakthrough: true stealth technology. "The Empire thinks stealth in space is impossible," Captain Miller said, walking beside James. "They stopped trying centuries ago. Their sensors all work the same way, and we've learned how to fool every one of them." The Empire had given Earth access to their historical records, thinking it would show humans how resistance was futile. Instead, humanity studied every rebellion, every war, every failed uprising against the Empire. They learned from every mistake others had made. In a secret meeting room beneath Geneva, the Phoenix Council gathered to review their progress. The Empire's garrison force remains at minimum strength, General Anderson reported. They think we're docile. Their patrol routes are predictable. Their response times to emergencies are fixed. We know everything about them, while they know nothing real about us. Dr. Baker added the final piece of good news. Our production is now at maximum capacity. According to our calculations, we've built more ships in secret than the Empire has in this entire sector. They're not just warships. They're better warships. Admiral James looked at the holographic display showing their hidden fleet's positions. Hundreds of dots scattered through the asteroid belt, each representing a ship that could outfight anything the Empire had nearby. Thousands more were under construction. How long until we're ready? Someone asked. James smiled grimly. We're already ready. Now we wait for them to give us a reason. The Empire thinks they're watching us, guiding our development like parents with a child. They don't realize they're dealing with a tiger that's learned to hide its claws. In the silence that followed, everyone knew. When the time came, the Empire wouldn't know what hit them. Humanity's revenge would be swift, overwhelming, and completely unexpected. The Mars Research Station floated peacefully in orbit around the red planet. 200 of Earth's brightest minds worked there, officially studying basic space sciences under Imperial supervision. In reality, they were developing new weapons and defenses, hidden beneath layers of innocent research. The Imperial patrol ship Dominance approached the station for its routine monthly inspection. But today was different. Captain Reed, who had first contacted Earth years ago, stood on the bridge with a cruel smile. Sensors detect unauthorized energy signatures, he announced. These humans have been deceiving us. Weapons free. Teach them the price of disobedience. The research station never had a chance to raise its public shields. Green energy beams sliced through the structure, cutting it into pieces. Emergency pods launched, but the Imperial ship shot them down one by one. Let this be a lesson, Reed transmitted to Earth. This is what happens to primitives who try to advance too quickly. He expected fear. He expected begging. He expected submission. He got none of these things. Deep inside Shadow Yard 1, Admiral James watched the attack footage with cold eyes. The room was silent except for the soft hum of computers. Around him, the Phoenix Council members sat with faces carved from stone. 200 dead, General Anderson reported quietly. No survivors. James stood slowly, his voice steady but filled with controlled rage. They murdered our people. Scientists, researchers, people who had families, dreams, hopes. He looked at each council member. I think we've seen enough. Activate Protocol Omega. Across the solar system, hidden commands flashed through quantum networks. In the asteroid belt, massive rocks split open, revealing fully armed warships. Beneath the lunar surface, weapon platforms powered up. In underground bases on Earth, crews rushed to their stations. The Empire had just made their final mistake. On his ship, Reed was preparing to return to his patrol route when his sensors screamed warnings. Space itself seemed to tear open as hundreds of ships appeared around him. These weren't the primitive vessels he expected. These were warships that made his look like a toy. Imperial Vessel Dominance, a cold voice transmitted. This is Admiral James of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your actions against our research station are considered an act of war. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Reed laughed despite his shock. You dare threaten an Imperial vessel. Your primitive fleet doesn't scare us. He ordered his weapons to fire. Nothing happened. Wondering why your systems aren't responding. James's voice held no humor. We've been studying your technology for years. Right now, our AI systems are inside your computers, shutting everything down. You never even noticed us hack your superior systems. Through his viewport, Reed watched in horror as more ships appeared. Not hundreds now, thousands, each one bristling with weapons that his sensors couldn't even understand. Earth's hidden fleet had revealed itself, and it was more massive than anyone thought possible. "How?" Reed whispered. "How did you hide this from us?" "You saw what you wanted to see," James replied. "A primitive species, bowing and scraping. You'd never wondered why we accepted your rules so easily. You'd never questioned why we studied your technology so intensely. Your arrogance blinded you." The human ships moved with impossible grace, surrounding the Imperial vessel in a complex dance that showed complete mastery of space warfare. Their weapons were unlike anything in the Imperial database, combinations of technologies that shouldn't work together but somehow did. In the Shadow Yard 1 command center, James gave his final order to Reed. "Your ship will be taken as a prize of war. Your crew will be imprisoned. And you, Captain Reed, will deliver a message to your empire." On screens across the solar system, humans watched as their fleet revealed itself. Factory workers cheered. Military personnel stood proud. Scientists smiled at their successful deceptions. "Send the signal to all human ships," James ordered. "Operation Reckoning begins now." Across the asteroid belt, more ships emerged from hiding. From Mars, Earth's first wave of carriers launched. From the dark side of the moon, special stealth vessels slipped into attack formation. Within hours, every Imperial sensor in the sector lit up with the same impossible data. Humanity had built a fleet larger than the Sector Defense Force, not just a fleet, an armada. The Empire wanted a war. They were about to get one. Imperial Admiral Grant stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Emperor's Fist, watching the holographic display with growing concern. 10,000 human ships had appeared from nowhere, spreading through the solar system like a swarm of angry bees. "Impossible," he muttered, adjusting his collar nervously. Their technology level was checked just last month. They couldn't have built this. His sensor officer interrupted with a shout. "Sir, more ships appearing. They're using some kind of stealth technology we can't detect. They're just appearing and disappearing at will." The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Unlike the rigid, predictable formations of Imperial ships, Earth's vessels flowed like water, constantly changing patterns. Behind each wave of visible ships, stealth vessels waited in the shadows. Aboard the Shadow of Earth, Admiral James watched the Imperial fleet scramble to respond. Their enemy had gathered 5,000 ships, their entire sector defense force, to crush this primitive rebellion. "They still think they're the superior force," James said to Captain Miller. "Let's show them how wrong they are." Launch the drone swarms. From the holds of Earth's larger ships, millions of small drones emerged. Each one was barely larger than a car, but carried weapons that could punch through Imperial shields. The Empire had never considered building weapons this small. They thought bigger meant better. They were wrong. "Sir," an Imperial officer called out, "those small craft, our targeting systems can't lock onto them. They're too small and too fast." Admiral Grant watched in horror as the drone swarms tore through his fleet's formation. Imperial ships fired wildly, their heavy weapons too slow to hit the tiny targets. Meanwhile, the drones fired precise shots that slipped through shield gaps the Empire didn't even know existed. "Imperial vessels, this is Admiral James. The transmission went out on all frequencies. Your shields cannot stop our weapons. Your sensors cannot track our ships. Surrender now, and we will spare your crews." Grant's response was to order his fleet to charge. 10 minutes later, he regretted that decision. The human fleet split into 3 parts, executing a battle plan they had practiced for years. The visible ships engaged from the front, while stealth vessels struck from behind. The drone swarms filled the space between, creating chaos in the Imperial formation. "How are they predicting our moves?" Grant demanded, watching another cruiser explode. "How do they know our tactics?" The answer was simple. Humanity had studied every Imperial battle record, every training manual, every tactical doctrine. They knew exactly how the Empire would fight, while their own tactics were completely new. James watched from his command chair, as the battle unfolded exactly as their simulations had predicted. The Empire's ships were powerful but predictable. Their weapons were strong but slow. Their shields were tough but inflexible. "Activate the Phase 2 weapons," James ordered. Special ships moved into position, firing weapons that combined old and new technology. Railguns accelerated projectiles to impossible speeds using Imperial gravity tech. Energy beams were modified to match the exact frequency of Imperial shields. Computer viruses hidden in sensor ghosts slipped past Imperial cyber defenses. "Admiral Grant," James transmitted again. "Look around you. You've lost a third of your fleet, and we've lost barely a dozen ships. Surrender." Grant looked at his tactical display in despair. The humans weren't just winning. They were systematically taking his fleet apart. Every Imperial tactic was countered before they could execute it. Every advantage they thought they had was turned against them. "This is impossible," Grant whispered. They were primitive. They were nothing. The battle ended 3 hours after it began. Of the 5,000 Imperial ships that came to crush the human rebellion, less than 1,000 survived to retreat. Earth's fleet had lost only 50 ships, most of them drones. As the Imperial survivors fled at maximum speed, James sent one final message. "Tell your Emperor what you saw here today. Tell him that humanity is not primitive. Tell him that we are not nothing. And tell him we are coming." The news spread across Imperial space at faster-than-light speeds. Humanity had not only revealed a massive fleet, they had crushed the Sector Defense Force like it was nothing. The impossible had happened. The Empire had finally met its match. In the Imperial capital city of Nova Prime, panic spread through the golden halls of power. Emergency alarms rang throughout the massive space station that served as the Empire's heart. The High Council gathered in their chamber, their faces pale with fear. "The humans have taken 3 more systems," one counselor shouted, throwing data tablets onto the table. "They're not just winning. They're freeing our slave worlds." Videos spread across the Imperial networks despite the censor's best efforts. Footage showed human ships appearing from nowhere, striking with perfect precision and vanishing again. Imperial propaganda tried to call these videos fake, but too many Imperial citizens had seen the battles with their own eyes. In his private chambers, Emperor Validus watched a special report with growing dread. The screen showed Admiral James speaking to the crew of a captured Imperial battleship. "Your empire calls itself advanced," James said calmly, "but you forgot the most important lesson of power. Never push those who have nothing left to lose. You tried to enslave us. Instead, you taught us. Every piece of technology you showed us, we improved. Every weakness you thought we had, we turned into strength." Validus crushed his glass in his hand. "Send the Elite Guard fleet. Crush these insects." But the Elite Guard fleet had its own problems. As they prepared to attack Earth's forces, they faced a new threat. The slave races of the Empire, seeing humanity's success, began their own rebellions. On the desert world of Chorus, the native people used human-provided weapons to drive out their Imperial masters. On the ice plains of Frost, the warrior clans reclaimed their planets. Everywhere the Empire looked, their control was slipping. Aboard the Shadow of Earth, Admiral James met with representatives from these freed worlds. The meeting room was simple but symbolic. All seats were equal, with no raised throne like the Empire used. "Humanity remembers its own history," James told them. "We know what it means to fight oppression. We offer you not conquest, but partnership. Together, we can end the Empire's tyranny forever." The alien leaders, expecting another conqueror, found something different in humanity's approach. Earth ships delivered food and medicine to freed worlds. Human engineers taught them to build their own defenses. This was not how the Empire handled things. Back in Nova Prime, the crisis grew worse. Imperial military leaders fought among themselves, each blaming others for the disasters. Their carefully planned defenses fell apart as human fleet tactics proved impossible to counter. "How do they keep finding our weak points?" demanded General Dax, watching another battle recording. The video showed human ships targeting exactly the right spots on Imperial vessels, hitting shield generators and weapon systems with precise shots. The answer was simple but terrifying. Human eyes processed battle data faster than Imperial computers could react. While Imperial ships followed preset battle plans, human vessels adapted and evolved their tactics in real time. In the outer regions, Imperial governors began surrendering without a fight. They had seen the pattern. Worlds that surrendered were treated fairly, while those that resisted faced humanity's full military might. A group of scared Imperial senators tried to send a secret peace message to Earth. "Name your price," they begged. "What do you want?" Admiral James's response was broadcast across all Imperial channels. "We don't want your wealth. We don't want your territory. We want justice. We want freedom, not just for humanity, but for every race you've enslaved. The age of the Empire is over." The message sparked more uprisings. On 1,000 worlds, oppressed peoples looked to the stars with hope. Human ships brought them weapons, training, and most importantly, proof that the Empire could be beaten. Emperor Validus made his last desperate move. "Release the planet killers," he ordered. "Show them what happens to those who defy us." But when the Imperial superweapons arrived at their targets, they found something unexpected. Human stealth ships had followed them, studied them, and learned their weaknesses. Before the planet killers could fire, they were destroyed by weapons they couldn't even detect. The Empire's last great weapon had failed. Their unstoppable force had met humanity's immovable determination, and for the first time in 50,000 years, the Empire was losing. The end was coming, and everyone knew it. The only question was, how many more would die before the Empire accepted defeat? Nova Prime loomed ahead of the combined fleet, a massive space station that served as the Empire's capital. Its golden surface reflected the light of 3 suns, and its defenses had held strong for 50,000 years. Until today. Admiral James stood on the bridge of Shadow of Earth, now leading not just human ships, but vessels from 20 freed races. The fleet stretched as far as the eye could see. 50,000 ships of all shapes and sizes, united against Imperial tyranny. "The Empire's home fleet is moving to intercept," Captain Miller reported. 30,000 ships, including their new super dreadnought. The super dreadnought, Emperor's Wrath, was the Empire's last hope. 3 times the size of a normal battleship, it carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The Empire had rushed its construction, hoping it would turn the tide of war. "Let them come," James said calmly. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Phoenix." The human fleet split into familiar attack formations, but this time there was a difference. Alien ships joined each group, adding their unique abilities to humanity's tactics. The freed races had learned well from their human teachers. Emperor Validus watched from his throne room as the battle began. "Activate the super dreadnought's main weapon. Show these rebels the true power of the Empire." The Emperor's Wrath charged its planet-killing beam, drawing power from 3 artificial suns. Imperial commanders smiled, knowing no shield could stop this weapon. But humanity had planned for this. "Now," James commanded. Hundreds of small ships suddenly appeared around the super dreadnought, having slipped through its defenses using human stealth technology. Each carried a special device developed by Earth's scientists, quantum field disruptors. The super dreadnought's weapon fired and fizzled out. "Imperial forces," James broadcast on all channels. "Your super weapon has failed. Your capital is surrounded. Surrender now, and no more lives need be lost." Instead of surrendering, the Imperial ships charged forward. They fought bravely but hopelessly against the combined fleet's superior tactics. Human drones, swarms cut through their formations. Alien energy weapons bypassed their shields. Stealth ships struck from impossible angles. Inside Nova Prime, panic spread through the Imperial court. Noble families rushed to their escape ships, only to find them disabled by human computer viruses. The Empire's elite guard fought among themselves, some wanting to surrender, others demanding they fight to the death. "Status report," James ordered, watching the battle unfold. "Enemy fleet is at 40% strength and falling," Miller replied. "Our losses are minimal. Their formations are breaking." Suddenly, a new transmission cut through all channels. It was General Dax, one of the Empire's most respected commanders. "All Imperial forces, stand down. I repeat, stand down. We've lost enough lives today." But Emperor Validus wasn't finished. In his madness, he activated Nova Prime's self-destruct sequence. "If my empire falls, I'll take you all with me." The station's reactor began to overload. If it exploded, the blast would destroy everything nearby, including the civilian ships trying to escape. James didn't hesitate. "All ships, fall back. Stealth Team Alpha, you have your orders." Before Validus could react, human special forces materialized in his throne room, using portable teleporters reverse-engineered from Imperial tech. In seconds, they secured the control room and stopped the self-destruct. "No," Validus screamed as they led him away. "I am the Emperor. I am eternal." "The reign of emperors is over," James transmitted across all frequencies. "Nova Prime has fallen. The Empire is finished." Across the station, Imperial soldiers laid down their weapons. In the space around Nova Prime, the remaining Imperial ships powered down their weapons. After 50,000 years of tyranny, the Galactic Empire had finally met its end. But in his private quarters, James didn't celebrate. He looked out at the stars, thinking of all those who had died to reach this moment, on both sides. "Captain," he said to Miller, "send word to Earth. Tell them it's done. Tell them we've won." As the message went out, ships from the freed worlds began approaching Nova Prime, not as conquerors or slaves, but as equals. A new age was beginning. The galaxy would never be the same. 1 month after the fall of Nova Prime, representatives from 100 freed worlds gathered in humanity's makeshift Galactic Senate. The meeting took place in a converted Imperial palace, its once golden walls now bearing the flags of every free species. Admiral James, still wearing his simple blue uniform, stood at the speaker's podium. Around him sat former slaves and former masters, all equal now in the new order. "The Empire is finished," he began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "Their fleet is disbanded. Their emperor awaits trial. Now comes the harder part, building something better." The trial of Emperor Validus had been swift but fair, exactly what he had never given his own subjects. From his prison cell, he watched on a small screen as his empire transformed. The mighty Imperial palace now served as a museum, showing both the Empire's crimes and the story of its fall. In Earth's shipyards, workers were already converting warships into exploration vessels. The secret facilities in the asteroid belt, once hidden in fear, now openly built ships for any world that needed them. Humanity shared its technology freely, teaching other races how to defend themselves. "Each world must choose its own path," James continued, addressing the gathered representatives. "Join our new federation, remain independent, or form your own alliances. The choice is yours. Real choice, for the first time in 50,000 years." In the streets of former Imperial worlds, change was everywhere. Alien children played with human toys. Human teachers helped rebuild destroyed schools. Former Imperial citizens worked alongside their former slaves, learning to see each other as equals. Captain Miller, now leading Earth's first diplomatic mission, visited a freed slave world called Haven. There, he saw something remarkable. A statue showing the human ship breaking Imperial chains. "Your people gave us hope," the Haven leader told him. "Not just weapons or technology. You showed us that fighting back was possible." That changed everything. Back in the Senate chamber, James unveiled humanity's most ambitious project yet. "We've discovered something in the Empire's oldest records," he announced. There are other galaxies out there, with other empires like the one we defeated. Some might be peaceful, others might be worse than what we faced. The gathered representatives murmured with concern. James raised his hand for silence. That's why Earth proposes the Guardian Initiative. Together, we'll build a defense force stronger than the Empire ever was, not to conquer or control, but to protect. Any world that faces tyranny can call for help, and we will answer. In orbit around Earth, the shadow of Earth was being refitted. Its weapons remained, but now it carried ambassadors and aid workers alongside its military crew. Other ships were being converted too, each one a symbol of how power could be used to help rather than harm. The Empire thought they knew everything, James continued. They forgot that strength comes in many forms. They forgot that innovation comes from challenge. Most of all, they forgot that unity born of respect is stronger than unity forced by fear. Former Imperial scientists, working alongside human researchers, made breakthrough after breakthrough. Without the Empire's restrictions on technology sharing, advancement happened faster than ever before. Solutions that had eluded the Empire for millennia were solved in months by combining knowledge from different species. As James concluded his speech, he did something no Imperial leader had ever done. He stepped down from power. Earth will not rule this Federation, he announced. No single world should. We'll serve as advisors, teachers, and friends, but each world must have an equal voice. The gathered representatives stood and cheered, not because of fear or protocol, but because for the first time, they were truly free. In his private office later that day, James looked at an old photo showing Earth's first contact with the Empire. How long ago that seemed now, when humanity had pretended to be weak while preparing for this moment. Admiral Miller entered with a report. The first joint patrol ships are ready, human crews serving alongside alien volunteers. James smiled. Then let's show the galaxy what real civilization looks like. As ships bearing the new Federation flag launched from ports across Earth, the message was clear. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun.